Hello everybody, and welcome back to Stationeers. Okay, so we are moving on to what I think would be probably the next step in your progression. Before we do that though, there's something I'm going to change on this playthrough. So far we've been playing on easy difficulty, which is fine. It's allowed us to kind of learn the ropes and kind of go from there. However, in the most recent update, there is now a need for the toilet, but that is disabled on easy mode. So I think we're about ready to go to normal. There's not much different. All it means is you will have to eat and drink in a place where you can breathe. At this point, you already have that. So to switch the difficulty, I'm going to press F3 and I'm going to type difficulty. And I'm going to get this wrong, you watch. And we're going to go normal. Okay. This now means that if I put my helmet on and I try and drink, I can't, because my helmet, I just kicked a keyboard, my helmet is closed. So I have to open my helmet and then I can drink. The same goes for eating, taking pills, all that kind of stuff. We're doing this because we can, and we also want to experience the toilet need so we can kind of go through that and show you what you'll need to do as and when the need occurs. We've got some time before that happens, so let's head over to the workshop. Hi everyone, Chewy here. One thing I didn't mention is that when you change the difficulty from easy to anything else, your lander will take damage. So up till now, you've been tracking it to get back to your base. You've been storing your stuff in there. I highly suggest if you change to normal, you go and empty that lander. Because if you don't, spoiler alert, it's all going to be lost. This kind of nipped me in the bud here because I completely forgot about that. And you will see later in the video that I kind of paid the price a little bit. Okay, there's going to be some disagreement in the order that I now do things. However, as I've always said, this playthrough is of my own personal opinion on what I think is beginner friendly. But basically, we're at a point now where you've got your greenhouse, you've got trading, you've got a furnace, you've got power production. You're pretty much good on a lot of things. But you're at a point where you still have to go out mining. And it's not difficult because we have the sensor lenders. It's nice and easy. But it's kind of a nice little fun project to build outposts. You can build something called deep miners, and they will mine an infinite amount of ore from bedrock. So it'll go down to bedrock on the world, and you will get something called dirty ore. You need to process that, and you will get ores of various types depending on where you put the deep miners. The reason I say there's going to be a difference of opinion is because some people will say you should probably do the rockets first, because rockets make locating areas easy. They do. But I do not personally think rockets are beginner friendly. I just don't. I think they open up a lot of possibilities. I think it could be a little bit overwhelming. And at this point in our playthrough, we haven't even got fuel production up. And getting an outpost up and running will help you have like the amount of steel that you need. It'll also give you knowledge in centrifuges, how they work, the deep miners themselves, having to deal with power, all that stuff before you get onto a rocket build. It's my personal opinion. Yes, it will make scanning the world a little bit easier so you know where to go. But yeah, there's some fun to be had just walking around trying to find a place. So we're not doing rockets. We will, but not yet. We are going to do it the long manual way. But I think this is where most beginners will start. I don't see the point in rushing rockets. And I'm not an expert at rockets anyway. When we get to that, I will show you how to do a rocket. But it's not going to be efficient. It'll work. And that's as far as my knowledge will take you. So, a few updates ago, we got a deep mining update, the world update. And basically what happens is there are certain areas of the world that have deposits. And these deposits are unlimited. So for example, there's one that people refer to as ICS, where you can get iron, copper, and silicon. There are other ones where you just get pure copper. There's some where you can get coal. There's all sorts of different areas. To locate those areas, there's two ways really. You've got obviously the rocket, which we're not going to touch, but there is also a deep ore cartridge. So if we go into our electronic printer and search for deep, you can see the deep miner cartridge. So I'm going to print one of these. There we go. And all you do is you stick it in your tablet and then turn your tablet on. Obviously we need to switch it. And there we go. So this gives you information on the region that you are in, the region name, the coordinates, as well as the ore composition. Now this ore composition is what you will get when you put a deep miner in this area. And some of these regions are huge. So you may have to do quite a bit of traveling, just is what it is. And this is what we're going to do. So we've got a storm coming, which is kind of bad timing, which is a shame, but never mind. All you need to do is you want to just go for a walk. Just get your tablet on you and just pick a direction. It doesn't really matter. Now, if you don't really fancy doing this, there are maps you can find online. I have a personal rule just not to use those because I think there is fun to be had in trying to locate them yourself. But obviously, go and have a look at the map if you would rather do that. It's absolutely fine. But all I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk around. And you may find yourself walking for some time, but once you find an ore composition that you are happy with, just write down the coordinates and just make a note of them somewhere. And then you will know where to go back to once you've got the stuff that you need for the outpost. So I'm going to take some time and just walk around and we'll see what we find. Okay, so we found a lead composition. Lead isn't overly that valuable to us. You don't actually use much lead, so I'm personally not going to waste too much time in building an outpost here. But it's good to just kind of have a vague idea of which location it is in case that need ever changes. Okay, there we go. That is probably the one that you're looking for. I found iron, copper, and silicon, and to be honest, it did not take much. If you want to, if you would rather avoid having to walk around yourself, feel free to write down those coordinates. So you've got X is 1056, Y is 130, and Z is 40. If you are playing on Mars, those coordinates will never change. The maps are fixed. They are built by hand. So if you go to these coordinates, you will find iron, copper, and silicon. So this is where we are going to build our first outpost. So what I'm going to do, just because I can, is I want to find the border of this region, because we may find that on the border there could be something else valuable, maybe gold and silver, for example. That would be quite good. And it means you can just have one outpost in one location mining up to 5 different types of ore, which is really efficient. But obviously it might not be that. We just need to try and figure out what we're bordering with. Okay, so we're bordering with nickel, which isn't really that valuable. Nickel is something that you will find quite a lot of, so it's absolutely fine. So I'm going to go back to my ICS, and then we're going to write down the coordinates, and yeah, we will start working on an outpost. Okay, so what I've done is I've used my tracker, and I found what I think is probably the closest point to my base, where I'm going to get my iron, my copper, and my silicon. Just because we've got to worry about transportation of the dirty ore, and it would be nice not to have to travel too far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down these coordinates. So we've got X being 815, got Y being 132. The Y doesn't really matter too much, and the Z being 9. Okay, we know where we're going to be going. So let's head home. So I made a boo-boo. I will ensure that I put a note on the start of the video, but I've only just realized what I've done. So I changed the difficulty to normal for the toilet need. Absolutely fine. But storms can damage your lander on any difficulty other than easy. So as I'm trying to track my base, I can no longer scroll because my lander is gone. So yes, I don't think there was anything in the lander that I wanted anyway. It's fine, we can make everything. But just something to be very aware of, that if you do go to normal, you are going to lose your shit. Whoa. Did you just see that? What the fuck was that? Whoa. Well, that was a trader. Interesting. Do traders take damage? Question mark. Yeah, trader's gone boom. That is a new one on me. Nothing else here seems damaged, so I think we're fine. But yeah, just some weird bug there, really, I think. Okay, so as you can see, our landing, our lander is gone, which isn't the end of the world. We did have a fuel canister in there. I'm not too concerned about it. We can make our own fuel. It's going to be absolutely fine. But just bear in mind that obviously if you go to normal difficulty, your Mark II lander will take damage. Not Mark II lander, sorry, just your lander will take damage. So ensure you've taken everything out of your lander before you switch the difficulty to normal. Otherwise, you're going to lose your shit. What we're going to do, because we've lost the lander, let's make ourselves a beacon. So in the electronics printer, search for beacon and just print one of those. Okay, so what we can do is we're just going to find a place where this can go. So let me put my tablet away. And I'm probably going to put it over here because I've got access to power here. So why not? And I'm just going to place it so that the power is basically there. Let's get it connected. And there we go. We could turn this on, job done. The beacon is something that you can track. So just like the lander was, if I grab my tracker, I can scroll and there's my beacon. Okay, so it's a nice way home. If you want to, you can get your labeler and we can label it to home. There we go. And now when we get our tablet again, it'll say home. So these use quite a lot of power. So don't leave it on unless you absolutely need to. If you want to save some power, there is also a portable beacon that you can make. Now, you do start with one of these in your lander. However, I've lost my lander. So if we go to the tool printer and search for beacon, we've got the tracking beacon. We just need some gold and some copper. I'm going to print one of those. Remember that you won't necessarily need to print this if you still have it in your lander, but I'm just going to print it. And there we go. We have a beacon. So we can chuck this on the floor. Works the same as that one, apart from this one needs a battery. So we can give it a battery out of, well, we could do any kind of battery. So we could do a large battery, for example. Turn it on, same kind of thing. We can label this one as well. So we could also call this one home if we really wanted to. But exactly the same. Obviously, the battery will run out. But what you can do is you could have a wireless battery. So if I grab one from my tablet, stick it in there. Obviously, this guy will keep this charged. These beacons use a lot less power than these ones. However, these beacons can be affected by storms. So you either leave it inside, so it can't be affected, or go to your auto leave, search for furniture, and print out one kit furniture. Okay, and then with this, you'll get a plinth. And what you can do is you can place the plinth anywhere. So we'll put it there. And then you can just put your beacon on it. That is now locked. That will not get affected by storms. It will not take damage. And also it will constantly stay charged if it's next to one of your wireless chargers. These use less power. So a lot of people use these. But I quite like the idea of using one of these. And if it's a power draw, it's a power draw. Just make more power. It's not the end of the world. Do what you want to do. For me, I'm going to use this one because I can. So I'm going to grab my wireless battery back out of here, stick it back in my tablet, and we'll just put this beacon and the plinth in my locker. Because we'll probably use these at the outpost. Okay, there are two types of deep miner. There is one that uses power, but recently they got a bit of a nerf that they aren't as fast anymore, but they're easy to set up. There is also a combustion deep miner, which are much quicker, but require a source of fuel. We haven't got to fuel production at the moment, so we're not going to worry about that. head over to your auto leave and search for deep. And you'll see here we've got the deep miner. They're quite expensive, so you will need to make some alloys if you haven't already got them. I also wouldn't just build one. Obviously, the more of these you get, the more ore you're going to get. So I'm going to probably go for 2 to begin with, but we can always scale it up later. Okay, the deep miners do have build states. So if we go into the deep miner in the Stationpedia, you'll see that each deep miner needs 12 steel sheets, 5 cable coils, and 4 electronic parts. So make sure you print those out as well. There we go, we've got 1 deep miner kit. I'm just going to wait for another one. There we go, we've got our 2 deep miners, we've got our steel sheets, our electronic parts, and we've got some cables to build them. I'm also going to take some frames with me. I'm going to want to make a little bit of a nice little outpost, so I'm going to take a fair few frames just to build ourselves a nice little platform. There we go, got 8 frames. I'm also going to print myself a silo. So I need some gold. There we go, 1 silo. And if you search for silo in the Stationpedia, you'll see that it needs 15 steel sheets, 10 plastic sheets, and 5 cable coil. So make sure you've got those as well. We're also going to print out a stacker. And once you have your stacker, you're also going to want to print out some chutes. So you want the basic chutes. I'm going to go for probably 20 for now, just to ensure that I've got enough. It may be too many, but it's only iron. Okay, we've got our 20 chutes. So we have everything that we're going to need for the deep miners and the little bits that are going to be kind of kept to them. But we're missing one important aspect, and you need to carefully consider what you're going to do about this. Obviously, the deep miners we're using, and pretty much all the devices here, really, the deep miners, the stacker, the silo, they need power. And you need to determine how you're going to do that. Are you going to run a really long cable all the way over to your outpost? Well, it's about 700 meters. I ain't going to do that. There are items in the game that can transmit power. In the electronics printer, if you search for power, there is a power transmitter. My personal opinion is just don't even waste your time with them. The idea is you have 2 of these and they need to point to each other and they will transmit power wirelessly. The problem is you need to be an ace at geometry to work it out, or you need to do IC to get them to point at each other perfectly. And even when you do that, the further away they are from each other, the more power you actually end up spending just to transmit that power. So you're using power to transmit power. I honestly do not think these are worth it. I don't really see what the point of these is. Over short distances, fine, but then I would just do cable. It's just easier. But it's there. If you want to have a go for it, but I'm not going to go through those. That I don't class as beginner friendly at all. The other option is that you have the outpost generate its own power. And to be honest, it's probably the easiest of the options. Obviously, what you've done here, you've got wind, you've got solar, you've got your generator. You could do the same thing over at the outpost. It can have its own power supply. So I think we're going to do that. It's the easiest way of doing it. So I'm going to go to the electronic printer. I'm going to search for solar panel. And we're going to just print out a few of the basic ones, the ones that will do the solar tracking for us. If you have the resources, then absolutely go for the heavy, because that way you won't need to try and box them in to protect them from storms. I don't have astraloy right now, and I'm not going to cheat it in, and I'm also just not going to waste time making it. So I'm going to do the cheaper solar panels, and we will just build a box around them like we did before. Another reason I want to do solar panels is because there's obviously been an update. That update now includes a 1x5 solar array. So we're going to have a look at that for the first time today. So in your Stationpedia, if you search for solar, you will now see that we've got these really long arrays. And you can see there we've got the solar panel dual 1x5, the solar panel 1x5. So if you have a look at these, they're crafted via the kit solar panel, and they require 4 kits, 2 steel sheets, and 4 glass sheets. So there is a saving to be had here-ish, because normally you would need 5 of these for 5 solar panels. You would then need 5 glass, but you're only using 4 of these. You do need to put some sheets in it, but there is actually a resource cost to doing this. So remember, because we're using basic solar panels, we're going to need to box them in. So you're going to want to find some of those walls that you can use for windows. So it's going to be the kit wall, because we can do composite window. But remember that you're going to need plastic and glass for these. There's my solar panel. And you'll see that my inventory is getting a little bit full. Because we've got some distance to travel, we're going to make a cardboard box, because we can transport stuff in this, and it only costs silicon. So let's just do it. There we go. We can now just stick some stuff in here. And now we can carry a lot more items. Because we're going to be doing power, I'm also going to do a battery. We're going to just do a small battery just so we can hold a certain amount of power. So I just need to put some copper in there and get one of those made. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to make some more frames. Because we're going for the box approach to get the solar panels working, we're also going to need to make sure we vacuum out that box. I'm going to grab myself an active vent, a passive vent, and some piping. There's my battery. Got some more steel sheets. Because we're going to be solar tracking, we're going to need to print out a sensor, because we're going to need a daylight sensor. And as promised, we aren't going to be doing IC, because I did mention in a previous episode that we're going to be doing everything via the logic circuits going forward. So I'm going to take some processors, memories, and logic IOs so we can build the solar tracking. Last but not least, ensure that you've got a decent supply of heavy cables. We're going to go heavy just to avoid having to mess about with transformers and all that kind of thing. Just make sure you've got some heavy cables with you. And finally, if you still have your portable beacon and you've printed out that furniture kit, grab that as well, because it would be nice and easy to be able to locate the outpost without having the need of having to keep the coordinates written down. Keep remembering more things. Because you are going to be doing that beacon, you're going to need the wireless transmitter, so we can keep it charged. So print out a power transmitter Omni, and also ensure that you have a wireless battery. I'm just going to print out one of the big ones. Okay, I have got a lot of stuff. So we definitely need the cardboard box. If you want to take more stuff, then feel free, just get more cardboard boxes. I may be forgetting something, and if I am, then I'll add something to the video. But for now, grab your coordinates and make your way to where you're going to be building your outpost. And here we are. We are at our iron, copper, and silicon. I'm going to ensure I go into it just a little bit, just to make sure there's no overlap to the other regions. But yeah, so we're going to get to building here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my deep miners. So let's just sort that out. Okay, the deep miner has to be placed in terrain. So you'll see that it goes green once you've placed it where it needs to go. So I'm going to put one here. And then the other one, I will place just opposite it. Like so. And we'll just give them a nice gap. Okay, we're going to get both of those built. There we go. And just to ensure that I haven't screwed up on the placement, I'm just going to walk around the deep miners and just make sure that the ore composition doesn't change. That way I know both deep miners are only going to get me a mix of iron, copper, and silicon, which they are. Just going to place some frames in between them for no other reason than just to have a platform to walk on. And we'll give each one of those a single weld. I'm probably going to put my beacon somewhere up here in the middle. So I'm just going to put my beacon there. Ensure that you put your battery in it. Label the beacon. So this one, because it's iron, copper, and silicon, I'm going to go ICS, outpost. Make sure it's on. Stick it in there. There we go. So nearby to this, we're going to need our Omni transmitter. So I will place this next to it. We'll turn that on, and shortly we'll get all of this cabled in. So unfortunately, I've picked a pretty bad place for this outpost, because the sun is rising over this hill here. so we aren't going to capture much morning sun. Kind of is what it is. Obviously, you need to take that into consideration if you're going to be using solar as your main power source. But because the sun is going to be rising 90 and setting over there at about 220, 225, I'm going to have my solar array over here so that it's not going to be blocked by the deep miners. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay some frames. And I'm going to lay them... Not that it matters too much, but let's go for this. Just for the sake of it, I'm also going to put support in there because, you know, floating frames don't always look very nice. And then what we're going to do is give each of those well, 2 weld because we need to make an airtight box. The support only needs 1, realistically. You don't even need the support, just a personal preference. Alright, there's our sun. So if we get our solar panel and we scroll, you'll now see that you have these 1x5. Now, I am going to do dual because I think it's going to be just a little bit easier to manage. We're going to place it on the frame, and when you are placing the middle solar panel. So as long as you are in the middle of where they're going to be sitting, the rest will just follow. And obviously the direction of this, like this, doesn't really matter. If you're going to be doing dual, it's absolutely fine. So I'm going to do mine this way. So we need 2 steel sheets and 4 glass sheets. There we go. We have our solar panels. Nice and easy, right? So then next we're going to do is we're going to do the box. And with the update, not that it matters for this, but you can see you've got like a nice little blueprint arrow that kind of indicates the direction of the window. Now, the window doesn't really matter. It's more for the walls that have patterns. For people who that matters. It just means that all your windows are going to be the same way. I'm going to ensure I get all of that completed. There we go. We now got our box. Now remember, we need to vacuum this box. Now, because we're using these solar panels, unfortunately, you don't actually have access to put an active vent on the floor, which is what it is. But what we can do instead is if we take out one of the windows at the top, can we get an active vent here? We can. So what we'll do is we will just put an active vent. Again, this doesn't really matter too much, to be fair. It might be easier to put it on the ceiling, actually. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do another frame here. We're going to take out that end wall. Make sure we fill in any gaps that we've made. Because what we're going to do over here is we're going to have our battery also inside this vacuum box. So that the cold temperatures at night don't have any effect on it. This also means that we can put an active vent inside this box. I'm going to have to nip home and get some more glass because I have undercompensated. But we'll be putting our battery here, giving that a weld and a screwdriver. And then what we need to be doing is getting the power output, which is on this side, into that battery. And because of that, I'm actually going to rotate my solar array because I realized that I've put it in a stupid position. I want the power to be going into the battery. So let's rotate this. Obviously, remember that everything we're doing here is basically subject to whatever you want to do. You don't have to lay this out the same I'm doing. I'm kind of trying to think on my feet as I'm going, and obviously I may have to change the odd little thing, but it is what it is. It's going to happen. So now I'm going to connect the power output to my battery input. Turn the battery on.
Air tank low.
Uh-oh. Okay, well, I'll be back shortly with...
Hydration critical.
I'll go get some glass sheets, and then we'll head back to the outpost to get this finished. While I'm there, I'll also get myself some water and some O2. Okay, so let's get that glass printed. And also, while we're here, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the tool printer. And I want you to search for waste. Print out one of the waste bags. Now, you only need these waste bags if you did turn the difficulty to normal or above. If you left it on easy, you don't need to worry about this next bit. In the bottom right hand corner below my water, you can see that we have a toilet need. Now, this goes up. When this reaches 100%, you're going to dirty up your suit. So, before that happens, for now, you want to be making sure you've got at least a waste bag on you. And you want to take off your suit. And I'm just going to use the waste bag. There we go. We've now satisfied that need. Our waste bag is 25% filled. At the moment, I don't actually know what we do with this. That might just be that. You may be able to recycle it. You may be able to put it through the centrifuge. I don't know. But for now, just keep filling that bag whenever the need occurs. And that will just keep you in check until you're ready to print out a toilet, which we will do at some point in the future. Okay, so because the tracking beacon that we put down has a battery in it, I can actually track my outpost and head back. And we're back. Okay. So let's finish off this box, which looks to be done. Very nice. And then what we'll do is we will connect the output of our battery to that active vent. Now, obviously, we're going to need a little bit of power. That will happen when the sun comes up, so I'm not going to worry too much about it right now. But what we'll do, let's place the daylight sensor so we are ready. So what I will do is I will place one more frame here. Stick the daylight sensor on that, get that connected to the cable, and actually this is going to be heavy cable, not light cable, so let me rip that out. Okay, I'm definitely going to need some more heavy cable, so I'm going to head back, grab some, and then hopefully be back in time for when daytime hits. Okay, so let's put our chips down, which we know we're going to need. So obviously, if you remember, what we did before was we were loading the horizontal and the vertical from this, writing it to the solar panel. So let's just do that, and then there will be a correction involved. I'm so used to doing it on IC that it takes me a second to get this sorted out. But if you're unsure as to what I've just done, go and check out the earlier video because I explained it much better than what I've just done here. But yes, that will work going forward. And as you can see here, we've started gaining power, which is very nice. So what we'll do is we'll set our vent inward, turn it on, and we'll start building a vacuum inside that box. Okay, so all that's left to do over here now is get the deep miners connected to power. We're also going to connect up our wireless charger, and we will get this connected to the power output of our battery. Okay, I'm going to turn this off. I've kind of fucked up here because I have not brought my atmospheric cartridge. I thought I did, but I can't find it anywhere. It's been on long enough. I'm going to assume that is now vacuum. If I remember, I will come, but I would recommend you check that and make sure that box is completely vacuum, because if it's not, your solar panels will take damage. One thing you could do is with a passive vent, just connect a pipe to it, and then you could stick your head through the window and read off that pipe. Unfortunately, I can't because I haven't got my cartridge, but it's probably fine. I've left it, it's been on for like over a minute, so that box is bound to be vacuum, I hope. But with everything connected, there's just one more thing we need to do. Let's turn these on. Well, I say there's one more thing we need to do, there's two more things we need to do. So I'm going to start with one for now, because I don't know if my power's going to hold up very much. So by turning it on and looking at this green panel, you will see the speed of the deep miner. So it's currently traveling at 47 RPM and it's getting faster. We are 144 meters from bedrock. You will not start collecting anything until it hits bedrock. So there is some time before you actually start collecting anything. You're going to have to just wait. It is what it is. The deep miner will give you information on what it's going to collect. So you can see you're going to get 0.3 iron, 0.2 gram of copper, and 0.1 gram of silicon. That's every time the progress bar hits 100. So as soon as it hits 100, you'll gain 0.3 gram of iron. It's not a lot. Once it gets down to bedrock, we will see how quickly it starts spitting out what it's going to collect. So what we need to do is the output of the deep miners need to be connected to a chute network. Otherwise, we're going to end up with just dirty ore everywhere. So what I'm going to do is with my chute, and I may not have brought enough of these, but we'll see, is I'm going to have these go up because I want to be able to walk under them. And I'm going to put my chute system up there. So we'll do the same over here. What I can do is I can use a long chute piece here. Let me just quickly head back home and get some more chutes. Okie dokie. So what we'll do is connect those there. We will then put a junction here. And now we need this to feed into a stacker. Because what happens is the deep miners will output your dirty ore in stacks of like 7, 8, 9, 10. It'll be all very different stacks. The easiest way of dealing with this is to use a stacker. So if I just stick a stacker here,
Power critical.
I should have got some power while I was back at base, never mind. I'm going to put that there. It's floating, it's fine. It doesn't matter, it'll still work. Let's set that to 50 and we'll turn it on. And then we'll get that cabled in. There we go, stack is connected. You can see our power is starting to run out a little bit. Kind of, yeah, not great. Stackers use a lot of power, but we also didn't collect much power on the day before. So hopefully when the sun comes up, we will have a certain amount of power that we can use for this. It should be absolutely fine. Solar panels are all where they need to be ready, so all is well. Because we've run out of power, obviously our deep miner is no longer making any progress. But we can't even see the bottom, so it's obviously done well. So whilst we're waiting for the sun, let's finally put a silo down. Now I'm going to stick my silo not on a frame, and we're going to kind of do it maybe here. So let's get this built. There we go. And finally, this will also need power. Okay, so the silo is basically just a mass storage item. It can hold a total of 600 stacks, and that is 600 stacks of anything. You could put multiple different items in here. Where is my cardboard box? So you input into the silo from the back here. So we're going to just connect this to the output of our stacker. Like so. And then what happens is when you're ready to take something out, you can just turn it on, you can hit this lever and it will just eject whatever you have. There we go, we've got power. We're currently generating 2.82 kilowatts, which is quite nice actually, because that means with the 1x5 solar panel, the shadow being cast from each solar piece is not having an effect, which is a good call, because otherwise no one would ever build this. But yeah, there we go. We're producing power. Everything should be able to be turned on. Stacker is on. This is on. And you can see we're 116 meters from bedrock. So we're just kind of waiting now for this to start producing something. But yeah, this is pretty much it. Now, what we've set up here is a very basic setup. You could scale up power. You could do wind turbine. You could do coal generator, that kind of thing. You could automate the deep miners to turn off if your power in your battery gets below a certain ratio. You can absolutely do that so that your beacon's always running. You can also set up automatic packing, so you could have the silo open, it pack into bags for you, so whenever you come here you just need to collect the bags, not the actual individual dirty ore. There's a lot of stuff you could build on this to make this better, but I'm covering the bare minimum here for you. It's up to you to go there and like improve what you have here. That's kind of the fun in the game. So next time we want to start working towards processing, because like I said, you're not going to get dirt. You're not going to get ore from this. You're going to get dirty. Well, you're going to get dirty ore. You're not going to get iron, copper, silicon. You're getting a mix of those that needs to be split. But before we can do that in an efficient way, we're going to need fuel. So next time, we're going to look into fuel production for the ore processing. So that should be interesting.
Hydration critical.
So I'm going to head home, because apparently I need a drink, I need some food, I need some power. I'm not looking too good right now. But yeah, hopefully this helped. A bit of a long one, to be fair, for me anyway. We'll see what it looks like when I've put it down. If this helped in any way, shape or form, let me know. If it didn't, then let me know. And until next time, take it easy. Bye.